What's up, Mijas? Welcome back to another episode of Mija Listen. I am your host, Gracie, and today I have Denise with me from HAYR, and she's gonna explain what HAYR is in a minute. But I just want to say welcome and thank you for taking the time to meet with me. We met on social media. Like a lot of my podcast guests have met that way online, and I really liked what you were putting out. It was something really cool that I had never seen before. And then, lo and behold, you definitely identified with some of the things we were posting, right? And we got to talking. So I'm excited to introduce her. Go ahead, Denise. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about HAYR?
Cool. Thanks, Gracie. So good to see you again, and thank you for having me. Where do I start with HAYR? I guess let's start with a little bit about me. So I am a seasoned marketing professional. I've been in marketing for software for about 10 years. And if you're in tech or in software, you know that that's not really, typically people's passion. It's not the most fun thing to do. And as much as it's something that I, want to do to like advance my career, I think I got to a point in my life where I was looking to, I guess, kind of reclaim a lot of my passions. And going back to like a lot of the things that I liked as a kid. So I was swimming a lot, I was painting a lot, I was writing little poems again, silly poems just about nature, about what I saw in the park. And as I did this, I kind of one day had this little, seed of an idea. And I said, what if we put some poems on a hoodie, or did this or did that? And at that time, I think I realized when I had this idea that I'd kind of been counting myself out when it came to fashion. I grew up, 11, 12 years old already, like in my shapewear, like had my faja under my dress. Like I was kind of trained that, you have a certain body, you dress a certain way. So I think I didn't have really a sense of style. And I was losing touch with a lot of the things that, I was interested in and I liked, including fashion. So that's kind of where HAYR came to be. Is I said, let's reclaim your love for art, for creativity, for marketing, for fashion, for sustainability, and kind of put it all in one place. And I was looking at, what the streetwear market looked like. And there were a lot of like streetwear for mental health and streetwear, with artists, and streetwear that's sustainable, but nobody that was kind of doing all of those things. So that's kind of how HAYR came to be.
I like that. And when we talked before, I like how you said you kind of reclaimed your childhood and kind of gave yourself the permission to be creative and write poems and all of that. And I feel like whether you're starting a streetwear business or not, I think we all need to do that. I think we need to take some time sometimes and take the time to allow ourselves to be creative and silly. And it doesn't have to amount to anything. It doesn't have to be some grand project that we do, but I think we all can benefit from being expressive and cathartic in that way and kind of reconnecting with your inner child, right? And you did that, and then you took it further and further and further, and then that's when HAYR came about.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell everybody what HAYR means or stands for? Because really, when I saw on Instagram, when I saw that, that's what instantly was like, oh, I have to know more. Because a friend of mine, Danny, who I've met through online, she has a podcast as well called Off the Cuff. And she and I had just recorded an episode it's not recently now, but at the time it was recent, where she and I were talking about our mental health and burnout and things like that. And she openly said on her podcast, like she kind of had a little bit of a breakdown or a reaction she wasn't expecting when someone asked her, like, oh, hey, how are you doing? How's your day? And you're like, oh yeah, we're good, huh? And then someone asked her, but how are you really? And she kind of, it hit her, and it kind of, like I said, she had the reaction she wasn't expecting. And I totally identified with that. It's like, how many times, we just were so busy, we go about our day. People just kind of cordially, how's your day? How are you going? What are you doing? And then no one really stops to ask you, but how are you really doing? And so when I saw that on your Instagram, I was like, oh my God. Okay, tell me.
Yeah. Oh, where do I start? I feel like maybe the way that I can put it is, HAYR wants to be the brand that focuses on, the art of human connection, so to speak. And that's why art is so much part of what we do. And, maybe kind of alluded to this already, but HAYR as an acronym stands for How Are You Really? And going back to what I was saying, about writing poetry, I was in this place where I was writing a lot of poems, and I also had an idea for a business. I had this little tinkle of an idea of, oh, I really like this line in the poem. What if I put that on a hoodie? And at some point I kind of stepped back and said, what if I, look beyond myself, look outside of myself, look for a way to kind of make this more impactful, more widely? What if instead of a line from my poem on a hoodie, it was a question like, how are you really? What if someone wearing that walks into a coffee shop and bumps into someone and, that sparks a conversation about how they're really doing, or about the fact that that's not a conversation that, is really typical to have. That's kind of the dream for HAYR. That's the goal. That's, the mission, I guess, in action. So that's what I would love to see, is just casual and day-to-day interactions changing because of the brand and what the brand stands for, and, the kind of messages that we put on our pieces.
That's awesome. Yeah, because when you think about things in the big perspective or in a big picture, it's hard to make like one giant impact. And I think it's a lot easier, and I think a lot more meaningful to make smaller impacts. Not to say that big impacts aren't great. They are, of course, but I think it's very significant and very important and really special when you can make an impact on someone's day or mentality, or an internal dialogue that they have going on. And then that trickles, right? Like that sparks other conversations, like the podcast episode that we're having right now. That sparks, conversations between friends. And I think those are just really, really important to have, like day-to-day conversations that just continue having, that continue to blossom into other conversations and bigger ideas. So I love that, because you're absolutely right. If you go and take a look at her website, it's beautiful. It is an art form. I think it's something that will start a conversation. So how did you get into HAYR? What led you to that moment where you took that step and say, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be an entrepreneur? And then what's that journey been like for you?
If I'm going to be completely honest, it was a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of like accidentally stumbling on things and mocking things up in Canva, and having friends who were fashion designers send me some mock-ups of, if you wanted to bring this brand to life, how would you do it? And kind of starting to see that and really envision it was the first step. It became, not just this idea, but something tangible, something that I could show people and say, would you wear this? Why wouldn't you wear this? How do you feel about the colors, et cetera, et cetera. I feel like culturally, all our flags, everything that we do is so colorful. And I feel like I've, always wanted to kind of bring that to the brand. I just super lost my chain of thought, but yeah, no, I just always kind of wanted to bring that to the brand and kind of, I guess, learn as I went, and take prototypes and evolve from them, interview people that I think would be the kind of consumer I would want, and take their notes on what they would want, and then the big part of that was also finding the artists that I wanted to work with. I think that was kind of the pivotal moment after the learning of the lessons, learning how to build the website, was finding artists that I aligned with. So I found, one other Latina artist who was in Los Angeles, and that's kind of how the first collection started. And I found a second artist in North Carolina who was, both a musician and an artist, and had really strong feelings about artist advocacy and about, specific messages that could be on pieces. Like forgive yourself first was one that we landed on pretty early. And that's one of the primary messages for our upcoming collection with that artist. So I would say maybe a combination of those two things is kind of iterating and learning, seeing different ideas, learning how to build a website, having all these things come together, and then say, okay, take my creativity and pull the creativity of another artist out there whose voice should be amplified, and put them together, I guess.
That's awesome. So just kind of finding other artists to collaborate with that are on that same kind of the mentality of growth and making an impact, making statements, and that's awesome. I love that, the forgive yourself. I think that's a big lesson we continuously learn. You mentioned your culture, and our culture is very colorful. But what is starting HAYR and being creative in this way and all of that, how has that impacted your relationship with your culture, or has that done anything, or has that kind of opened any doors for you in there?
I think I feel a lot more unapologetic about both kind of like my culture and my identity. I think I like to describe HAYR as kind of like unabashedly colorful. Like I'm never going to be the
Mm,
brand that's like, we dropped a black and white collection, or here's the neutrals collection. Like that's just not true to, I think,
yeah.
what the brand is, who I am, what my culture is. So I think just being bright and adding color to the world in that place has been great. And then also just being, representation, being a Latina CEO and being able to share those experiences with other Latina entrepreneurs, with my family, with younger cousins who now are like, oh, maybe I could start my own business. I never thought of that before. It never, occurred to me as a possibility. I thought I was just going to work my way up the corporate ladder. And that was how, I live the American dream. That's how I make my parents proud because I'm first generation and I need to do
Mhm.
that. And it's not the only way to do that. So I think kind of being that example as well is just like an added bonus.
That's awesome, and that's great that you said that. There's so much pressure on first generation Latinos, Latinas, that to kind of do or live the American dream, right? Or you go to school, you become a doctor, you become a teacher, you become a whatever. You join corporate world, you climb, you work, you, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But I think a lot of times in our culture, what happens is those dreams or aspirations get put upon us, get placed upon us, and it's just kind of us to not let the family down or to provide for the family in that way. When at the end of the day, a lot of us aren't connected to what we're doing, and then you kind of end up in a not such a great place mentally and emotionally when you're every day committed to doing something that's not making you happy or not fulfilling you. So you said you were in the marketing world for quite a while. Are you still working full time and pursuing HAYR?
I'm not doing HAYR full time. I'm also a part-time marketing consultant, so I do some of that. And then I was also full-time working at a software company as a marketing manager, and I got laid off as a lot of people in tech did recently, but I'm looking for another full-time role. So definitely something that I'm going to continue to juggle. Before I started
Yeah.
HAYR, I was working full-time and I was in grad school, and I graduated for my master's program and started HAYR. So it's kind of been like what's filling that space. I just love to stay
Mm.
busy. I kind of always am busy. So right now it's something that
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
will
ask, like,
balance.
what is that like, balancing a full time business, or a business, and working full time, going to school, all of that. What is that like for you? What does that look like? Like, what what lesson we talk, me and some other or myself and some other podcasters, we talk about, like, what are our tips for balancing a full plate. So what does that look like for you, or like what can you share to other Latinas that are trying to start something, that are working or have a full-time, or have a part-time business, or something else that they're pursuing? Like, what works for you as far as like time management, balancing, and what have you learned, or what would you like to share?
That's a really good question. Unfortunately, a lot of us, I mean, I think we've watched our parents hustle. We know what the hustle is. We know how to work hard, and that's part of it. But I think that one thing that's maybe overlooked a lot when it comes to juggling a lot of things is kind of being proactive about mental health and about self care before you hit that burnout phase.
Mm,
Finding ways to find peace for yourself, to find time for yourself so you don't feel like you're constantly sprinting because eventually there is a wall in front of you and you're going to hit it. It's just a question of when. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, well, I'll deal with it when it becomes a problem. If my back hurts, I'll go get a massage. Or if my vision starts getting blurry because I'm staring at my computer too much, I'll go do something, or I'll go for a walk. If I have been at my desk for 6 hours, that day. And, why don't we challenge that? Why don't we say, every hour that you've been working, get up and just walk for a minute or 5 minutes, or stand, or get some fresh air and come right back.
yeah.
And have it be more of like a standard part of your day as opposed to, in case of emergency, break glass. And that's when you, go for the walk or drink water for the day, which for me is bad. I drink so much coffee, and by the time I remember to drink water, I'm
Oh, yeah.
dehydrated. So I'm
As
working
much
on
as
it
I
too.
like to have those conversations about mental health and just like taking care of yourself, yeah, I'm that person as well. Like, um, I'm like, oh, drink water. Don't go get another coffee. Drink water. Like, I'm so
Yeah,
good
yeah,
at
just the
telling my kids
intentionality
about it,
there is
but I need to
important.
tell myself, yeah. So, well, why don't we talk a little bit about your brand and all the creative fun stuff that goes into it, and maybe tell us a little bit about what your favorite collection has been in the past or collaboration, and maybe what you have coming up.
Cool. Um, my favorite collection, I mean, I guess that's hard to say because I've really only had the
or
first
or
drop.
collaboration or moment, or like, that spark, like what has happened in your journey in HAYR that's like really kind of lit a fire for you and just kind of reassured you that this is the passion you want to be pursuing.
I think it would probably be finalizing the designs for our first collection. So as I mentioned, I met another Latina who was a fashion designer in Los Angeles. We would, meet up and have coffee, talk about designs, kind of text things back to each other, send inspiration. And I had, I think, a very clear vision of what I wanted. I wanted these colors. I wanted to, go and upcycle a bunch of samples that we had made. We had a bunch of t-shirts that just had how are you really printed on them as like a prototype. And I was like, you know what? Let's not have anything go to waste. Let's go and, stitch these back into something new. Let's, have a collection that's fully inspired by the 90s, and let's have like a retro vibe, and, let's see how we can bring that together. And I think having the idea and visualizing it and then having it come to life and having it be in like such a collaborative way was awesome for
Mm-hmm.
me. When I first started the company, I kind of assumed it'd be more like I would, explain the brand to an artist and I'd kind of hand the reins over to them and they'd come back to me with a design and that would kind of be it. But it was a lot more fluid than that. There was a lot of conversation about, hey, I'm at Goodwill and I found these sweatpants, what do you think of this texture or this textile? Could we, incorporate it in some way? And kind of going back and forth throughout the entire process, I think was really fun for me. I learned a lot from the designer, but it also kind of got me involved in the more creative part, not just the marketing and the branding and the, running the business, but also the fun part
Right.
of doing it and the part that allows me to connect with other people in the same way that I kind of want to help or have the brand help people do that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then what do you have coming up, or what are you working on?
So we have two collections in the works right now. One is called the Heartthrob collection. It's also going to be 90s inspired. There will be 90s heartthrobs everywhere that you look. I won't tease any more than that because we have another collection that's dropping before that. That drop is coming on 11/11, and that is our mental health collection. So that's going to be, the collection that's dedicated to the kind of messaging that we want to get out to our audience. That's, we have a really cute button down with kind of like line art on it that says, forgive yourself first. We have, a little shawl that says, look how far you've come. We have, pieces that just say, how are you really, right on the front, and kind of get right to the point. But I think this is kind of our first step into focusing on messaging and focusing on language and focusing on, the actual words that people are going to be reading on our pieces. The first time it was
Mm-hmm.
more about the aesthetic and about, upcycling pieces and getting the brand right and getting our logos on it. But we didn't have as consistent of a focus on, every piece is going to have words on it. We're going to be intentional about what those words are. Whereas when it came to this collection, it was very intentional. Whereas every piece that you're going to pick up is going to have some message, some reminder of, your relationship with yourself, your relationship with the world, make you maybe think about something different or see a new perspective. And hopefully that's the goal. But I really love the collection. We're actually teasing a lot of the pictures from the photo shoot this weekend. So look out for that.
Oh, cool. I will definitely. I think I've seen maybe one or two, and I was like, oh, is this the? Yeah, this is new, right? Have you put something out already, like a little story or something?
Yeah, we've done a couple of teasers, not like a hard launch yet, but like a
Yeah,
soft, like something's coming, keep an eye out
it's
type
working.
situation.
I was like, ooh, what's this?
That's the goal.
I will definitely make sure we share it, and everything we talk about in her website and everything will be on in the show notes.
That would be awesome.
That's really cool. I'm curious. what has been your family's reaction to you starting HAYR or to seeing your collections come out? What has that been like? Because, sometimes our families are funny about, side projects, as they call them. Oh, your little thing you do for fun. They kind of downplay things like that. And it's like, pick your battles. But has your family supportive, or have they kind of just been watching from afar, or what's that been like for you?
It's been a little bit of both. To be
Yeah.
honest, I definitely, especially when the brand was really small and like all my followers were like my 10 friends, my grandma and my aunt, just like, yeah, you're cosita. What are you doing again? Something
Your
about
cosita.
clothes. I'm like, yeah, something about clothes. Like, I'll get there. Like, once it's there, you'll get it. So I think that
Yeah.
was part of my motivation to like do something with the website and get creative and actually do the web design myself and have it look exactly how I wanted it to look, and grow the social
Yeah.
media and have kind of the imagery and the look and feel of the brand that, so that I could basically have something to show for, oh, I have this idea, and have it be
Yeah.
reality. And I've been really fortunate that, since the website went live and since we launched our social media and now I guess it looks legit to them, they're like, oh, your company. I'm like, oh, now it's not my cosita. Now it's
Oh,
the
your
company.
company.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're taking
That's
it more
cool.
seriously now. I've had a good number of my family members actually purchase from the brand too. So that's been awesome to
Awesome.
see. But yeah, I think the more it like comes to life and becomes reality, the more they're like, oh, okay, I think it's more than a side thing. Maybe I'll get some
Yeah.
questions about it at Christmas, so I'll prepare.
Yeah, do a little preparation, do a Christmas presentation for everybody.
HAYR update since last year.
Yeah, that's cool. It's always been a funny dynamic to me, in Latino families. Like you said, we all do have this like innate hustle mentality, because our parents or their parents or whatever generation it is has had to struggle and hustle and work more than one job to provide. And sometimes those jobs, usually there's like a primary one, right, and then there is like a secondary part-time job or whatever. it, a lot of times the secondary part-time jobs have nothing to do with what they do for most of their day, right? But somehow when our generation starts a business or a side project or whatever you want to call it, the judgment happens or the doubt happens, or if we just want to derail from that plan that they have for our lives, it's not always met with open arms, and it always, that dynamic always kind of, I don't know what the right word for it is, but I just don't quite understand where that comes from, because it's like, well, I've watched you do the same thing and all I'm doing is taking my passion a step further, and I've watched plenty of Latinas kind of struggle with that and not have the full support of their family, of their parents in what they're doing. If you've experienced any of that at any point, do you have any advice for women just kind of maybe who are thinking about taking that step?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that comes to mind is, we're doing the things that they're doing and they're judging us for it. And, I've brought this conversation up before to my mom, and her response was, well, yeah, you're doing what I was doing and I want better for you than what I had. So if I can compare, you're not doing enough. There needs to be something, different. I need to want more for you. But more is so subjective. I mean, they want more
Yeah.
of what they want and you want more of what you want. And those aren't necessarily the same thing. But I think a lot of times too, culturally, I mean, Latinos are looked at as the underdogs. We're not taught to really assume success, that we're going to be successful. It's, the odds are against you and you kind of have to fight them. So you're kind of starting from a position of, they're doubting you and you're almost being pressured to doubt yourself. So I think honestly, my advice would be just believe in your gut and be confident about it. I mean, if you have an idea for something and it's something that you want to do and your heart is saying, that's where I'm meant to be. Trust yourself,
Hmm.
because otherwise, I mean, you have messages from the world saying you're the underdog. You got messages from your parents saying you're the underdog. We're all the underdogs. I mean, at some point that feedback loop needs to change, and you need to be the one to
Yeah,
change it. And you need to be the one who changes what that voice is telling you.
absolutely. Um, that's great advice. That is great advice. It is up to us to change that pattern, that conversation. What advice do you have to anyone who maybe culturally grew up not as connected to their culture, um, and are now kind of stepping into their culture and finding themselves? I know we talked about that. We kind of connected in that way. Maybe if you want to share a little bit about your journey in embracing your culture and where that's leading you, and how that's propelled you going forward. What's that been like for you?
Yeah, I mean, the two things that stand out to me are, it's never too late, and your identity is your identity. I mean, nobody can define who you are except for you. And I think that a lot of us, especially, when we were younger, maybe adolescents, there was a lot of pressure to like not be who you were, to, maybe assimilate more depending on, where you were. I grew up going to private school where a lot of times I was the only Latina in my class. So it was, oh, well, maybe I pronounced my name Castillo instead of Castillo. And people will just kind of assume I'm Italian and I'll fly under the radar, and that'll be cool. And I think there was this like identity crisis for a long time where I was very okay with like flying under the radar and I didn't want to stand out. But I think, once you start to embrace who you are and embrace your culture, you decide ultimately that it's something that you want to be proud of, something that you want to celebrate. And I think that's something
Mm-hmm.
that we should all, lean into, not just, I accept who I am, but I celebrate who I am. I want to tell you who I am. I want you to know who I
Absolutely.
am. And I want to be loud about it, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think there's a power in that, in women especially finding that time in their life where they're finding comfort and finding inspiration in their culture and accepting it and realizing that that's who they were all along, and they were kind of holding themselves back a little bit. And when you step into that power and embrace your culture and embrace who you really are, whatever your dreams are, um, your passions are, I think there's some power in that, and you can really use that to propel yourself forward and take leaps of faith, take steps in the opposite of direction of what you've been doing, stepping outside of your comfort zone. And whether it's big or small, whether it's starting a business, or just just kind of changing what your day-to-day life is. I think there's power in stepping forward, knowing that you are who you are, and no one can take that from you, or no one can change that. And um, I see a lot of that strength and boldness in your collection, in your clothes, and what you post. And I think that's what really attracted me to your Instagram page, and what made me reach out.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, honestly, what I'm thinking about is like a lot of my friends who are, Latinos, but, raised in the US, and maybe their Spanish isn't super strong, or they don't speak Spanish at all. And, they carry this shame about it, or there's this judgment about it. And the reality is, you're 30, you're 40 years old, and you decide you want to go learn Spanish, and you're doing that for yourself. That's awesome. Like, why are you letting somebody make that feel like it's a bad thing, or it's something that you should be ashamed of because you didn't, do it sooner? I think there's no
Right.
better time than the present to really do anything. And it makes me so angry sometimes that people kind of put shame on that, because choosing to learn something, putting your energy into learning something, especially a new language, is not easy. And I think people should be given credit for it, as opposed to being, shamed into, well, if you don't speak Spanish, then don't speak Spanish and just let's talk in English. It doesn't have to be that way. And I think, for me personally, and also with HAYR, I think it's just about, blowing up the box. Like, don't tell me who I am. Don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me what language I should speak. I mean, I am who I am, and I want to do what I want to do. And we should be allowed to be authentic, I think, and celebrate it.
That's awesome. I love that. Blow up the box. Be authentic. Be yourself. I like it. Blow up the box. That's gonna stick with me. Yeah, it took me a long time to really embrace that in myself. And I don't fluently speak Spanish. I do speak a lot of Spanglish. and it took me a long time to
Don't we
just kind
all?
of be comfortable, and I'm like, you know what, that's just how I speak. The other day I was at work, and I said something in Spanish to one of my coworkers who is not Latino. And I was like, oh, and I'm kind of new still at work, right? Because I've only been there for about 3 weeks now. And I was just like, that's going to happen. Don't worry. It means I'm comfortable with you.
Yeah, I've been seeing that TikTok recently, the sound of the kid who gets told to like thank somebody in Spanish and doesn't know how to say, the last word, and he's like, thank you for the, and she's like, no, en español. She's like, gracias por los, I don't know how to say compliments. And it was just like the most relatable thing, because even to this day, I don't know how to say compliments. I might Google it after this. But it's just like one of those moments that you have a lot of times as like a first generation,
Yeah.
Latina. And it doesn't make me any less Latina, but it is pretty funny.
It is. It happens all the time. And it's just like the Selena one too, where she's like, me siento muy excited.
Excited. Yeah.
It happens in both, for me, it happens in both languages. It's like, oh, my brain's having a moment. Like, I only know how to say it in Spanish, or I only know how to say it in English.
Yeah.
And it's, it's a lot, and it takes a lot for our brains to go back and forth. And I just, people shouldn't be judgmental, or, if someone's learning, they're learning. If it took me a long time to feel comfortable speaking Spanish, the Spanish that I did know, and I would hold myself back, because I was embarrassed, or because I didn't want to say something wrong. And now it's like, you'll understand what I mean, and if you don't, just ask. We'll get there. Like, I'm just not as embarrassed or shy or anymore to say anything. And I think a lot of it is like, it doesn't matter, people get so worked up about things, and it's like, it doesn't matter. It's okay.
So true.
Life continues.
Yeah, honestly, I get so stressed. I'm like, oh, I might conjugate this word wrong. It's like, honestly, I might do that in English, and that's okay
you
too.
Still know what I'm trying to say.
A mistake is being made either way, and that's fine. It's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah, it is. It is okay to make the really great thing about having kids is that they remind you that it's okay to make mistakes. Like, I'll do something, and especially my youngest daughter, like, she'll just say, "Oh, accidents do happen." I was like, "That's true." I was like,
That's
all right.
so cute.
And it's a nice reminder to not be as I think as adults we can be more heavy on ourselves, or more, I don't know I'm trying to think of what the word is. We're harder on ourselves, mentally and emotionally. I think we're harder on ourselves, and we don't forgive ourselves as easily. So I thought about that when you're talking about the forgive yourself that's coming up soon. It's like, it's such an important reminder. I think we don't always remember to give ourselves grace, and a lot of times we're hard on ourselves about things that are like, it's okay, it's a blip, it'll pass, things can change, it's nothing permanent. So that's, I think I'm excited to see that new collection. That's going to be good.
Yeah.
What are your goals, or what do you want to see happen with HAYR? What do you short term, long term, what do you see happening, or what would you like to happen? What would be your dream collaboration?
Ooh. I follow, honestly, a lot of fashion designers on Instagram. I don't know that I have a favorite or one that I'm like dying to work with, but I would just love to kind of see the business kind of continue to grow. We did 2 collections this year. Maybe next year we do 4, and kind of grow that in that way, and kind of continue to see how we can change the conversation in the world, but also on social media. A lot of what we've also been working on, in addition to the collection, is this thing called HAYR the series, which is essentially just interviews with some of our followers and people in our community, just answering the question, how are you really? That's something that I definitely want to continue growing over the next year. I think the focus recently has been a lot on the streetwear itself and the clothes, but just kind of want to reclaim that mission and be louder about it, and remind people, or tell people for the first time, or maybe followed me more recently, what we're about beyond the clothing. And honestly, long term, I would love to see it explode. I would love to see like a HAYR Fest, something that's like a music slash wellness festival, and kind of mash up all the things that HAYR stands for, and have, little booths with different artists, and have the event itself, be sustainable, and have, little hydration stations, and have, mental health professionals there, and kind of redefine, I guess, the idea of what, a festival is. I think people think, loud music and drugs and alcohol, and, then you go home, but it could be the anti-festival, dare I say.
I like that. I like that. That's a good idea. You definitely make that happen. Why don't you tell everybody where we can find you, where we can find HAYR, and about what you have coming up? I know you mentioned it, but go ahead and say it again.
Yeah, sure. You can find us on Instagram and on TikTok at Sounds Like HAYR, and then our website is www.soundslikehayr.com. That was very intentional. When I wrote HAYR, I had a lot of people asking me if the company was about hair. So this is a very easy way to remind people that it's not. And in terms of what's coming up next, I just wanted to reiterate, we have our mental health collection coming out. It's in collaboration with a North Carolina-based artist named CJ Monet, who you can also look up on Instagram at CJ Monet. And that collection will be out on 11/11. There'll be, I believe, 12 or 13 pieces. All of our drops are pretty limited, so definitely, if that's something you want to look out for, mark your calendar, because it will very likely go quickly.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about the collection that you had out? I saw some Selena stuff. So we are a Texas-based podcast. I do have shirts on our brand that I have called Nuestra Reina. I do refer to her as our queen here in Texas. So that collection, or the pieces that I saw on Instagram, looked so cool. Way cooler than me.
Oh, thank you.
But that I could pull off, but it looks so awesome. Was that the 90s one as well, like kind of the throwback?
Actually, the Selena piece is a teaser from not this upcoming collection, but the next one. So the Heartthrob collection that I mentioned, Selena is our, hero 90s heartthrob. So obviously she had to be the first drop. And I kind of just decided to make that a giveaway, and give some people, an opportunity to win a piece, because we know that our collections are pretty small and things sell out. So that was a little bit of a teaser. Once we start actually pushing the Heartthrob collection, we'll probably call back to that piece and, say, remember this, this is, the seedling for a much larger idea, and kind of drop the rest of them. So hint, hint, if anybody's going to the NSYNC reunion tour, there will be something for you too.
That's cool. I'm excited to see that throwback or like the Heartthrob collection. That's going to be very interesting. I didn't know that the Selena piece was a part of that, and that like piques my interest even more. Your pieces are really cool. You see things that you like or catch your eye, and then you go look at it, and there's just so many layers to absorb. And then when you go to your website and you see the collection as a whole, it's really cool. I really encourage everybody just to go check it out, even if it's not your cup of tea to wear. Go check it out. It's really awesome, and share Denise's business HAYR. It's something that I just have not seen out there, and coming from a Latina, an entrepreneur who's, again, taking that step that everybody's like, everybody has their opinions. Take the step, do it, like follow your dreams, like you said, trust your gut. I love it. Thank you, Denise. Thank you for spending some time with us today. You're always welcome to come back, chime in anytime you want. I definitely want to hear more about the conversations that you said about having people kind of talk about how are you really. When you have more of that come out, let us know. I would love to hear more about that and what that's like for y'all, and that's like a really cool concept. You're doing some really cool things, and definitely everybody follow her and keep an eye out. It's really awesome to see female Latina entrepreneurs doing their thing and being badass, and you're definitely one of them. So thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. You have anything else you want
Thank you,
to add?
Gracie. Just kind of underline, what I said earlier is don't forget it either, is blow up the box. It's not about, step outside of the box or, think a little bit to the left of the box. Like, just blow it up. Don't be afraid to blow it up, and don't apologize for blowing it up. So the people who are going to gravitate toward you are going to do that because of and in spite of the fact that you blew up the box. And that's all.
Absolutely. Very good. Very good advice. Very good advice. I appreciate it. Thank you, Denise. I wish you well.
Thank you.
And we'll be sharing all of those collections coming up. When I see it, I'm gonna be really quick to share that because I'm excited to see it.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye. Have a good rest of your weekend.
Bye, you too.
Thanks for listening, mijas. We'll be back with another episode for you soon. Until then, make sure you subscribe and follow on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you want to help us out, leave us a rating. That would be great. And as always, you can check out mijalisten.com for all of the podcast info and our merch as well, so you can represent our cultura anytime you want to feel like the strong, badass mujer that you are. Make it a great week. Y si quiere hablar conmigo, don't be shy. Send me a DM or reach out on the website. Bye.